The turbulent storm, whatever, is paving the way for the end of Season 1, and there's lots of news for 11.1 and Season 2 to get people excited and maybe sharpen their pitchforks. Hey, it's Soul, and this is Warcraft Weekly. 30 hours of streams cut and tightly packed into your little weekend digest. You can help support the channel by liking this video, subscribing for more WoW coverage, and catching me where I'm live. Plunderstorm Round 2 started this week after a short delay we'll never forgive nor forget, and with it the conveniences and plunder increases put in with the initial launch, and a new round of rewards not quite as extensive as the previous round. In fact, they're mostly recolors. Not to say they don't look awesome, by the way. New powers were introduced, but not too many new powers, especially because there was a clear favorite, as with some good luck, you can finish off a low health player from a massive distance. And as usual, the most powerful ability was the bush. It was the only way I was able to win my handful of games this time around. What was given universal praise from players, the rewards being on a store rather than a progress track, allowing folks to target the things they want and ignore what mattered less, ensuring they could feel like they're always progressing for things that they do want. A practice mode was added so we can actually understand how these powers work, and we have the option to queue up while logged onto our current characters, which is very cool. Plunderstorm is as fun as it was before if you get the double meaning, so I want to talk about the reactions I've been hearing, some of the suggestions to improve it, and my reactions to those. The response from gamers has been very similar to the last time. People who love Plunderstorm gameplay continue to love it. Those who don't either force themselves into it because they want the rewards, making them dislike it even more, or they don't participate at all, the arguably better approach for their mental health. So it's sort of a relief. The new rewards for this round were in fact fewer, they weren't completely new, and they were put onto a store. I've read reactions from all over, gamers feeling this sense of relief grinding through matches to get rewards much faster than before, finishing in only a few short days. This is, kind of what we get when we have these different game modes offering cool things all players, no matter their gameplay experience, what they want. I'll bring this up later in the video, but I want to identify 3 distinct ways of experiencing the world of Warcraft. There's like PvP stuff, there's solo PvE as in Delves, and there's group PvE as in dungeons and raids. Lots of gamers cross over from one lane to another because, hey, they like doing everything, or they use one thing as a path to another. But there are certain trends we can mostly agree on. Like PvPers don't like being forced to PvE and vice versa. Solo players don't like to do group content, and group players, well, they have their own little beef between feeling forced to run dungeons or raids for gear, but what I'm mostly trying to highlight here is how people will clench their teeth for the most part and put up with crossing lanes for rewards or gear that they want. Anyway, back to Plunderstorm, it's unsurprising to hear fans wanting more rewards. Basically reason for folks to keep playing and keep games full and keep them queue time short. Because at this rate, it's not going to be long until most of the reward-minded players are done, if not already, and the ones who are left are the more experienced players who are there for fun, but they might find their queues to be a little bit longer, or find their games to have fewer than the 60-person cap, and they might feel a little bit tougher during the early stages. At the moment, the long-tail goals of Plunderstorm Round 2 are certain achievements. 250,000 total plunder earned means you get a title called the Treasure. It also happens to count plunder earned from last March. One suggestion that I hear from folks, hey, how about Tender? Tender rewards were given in the first round but were suspiciously absent this time around. But why is that? I'm speculating here, but I think Blizzard wised up and realized maybe they shouldn't have offered Tender even in the first place. Because remember what Trader's Tender is. It's a cosmetic currency earned from everything in WoW, from PvE to PvP to doing like funny emotes and participating in outdoor shenanigans. Most everything you do in the game contributes to the Traveler's Log and the Tender that you get from it. So why should this bucket of Tender be earned from a gameplay-specific, time-limited event? Similar logic applies to Tender being bundled with store purchases. Like, notice how they've been very skittish on that, the one exception so far being expansion bundles. It actually won't surprise me if in the future this Plunderstorm specific Tender is made available for 0 plunder, so they can fully wash their hands of what I think was a mistake. So what about other rewards? Like, how about things that tie into the more regular part of the game? Suggestions from Bellular included Marks of Honor for transmog appearances and Honor experience to progress down that old Honored level track from Legion. It sounds reasonable, but I'm not so sure that lands very well. A move like that looks like it's for the people who don't regularly PvP. Meanwhile, it's not even a great incentive for those who already PvP, like they already likely use those marks of honor as like a consumable dump these days. I'd like to think, for a limited time event, Blizzard should double down on that feeling of a moment of glory. And in my headcanon, nothing works better than a public leaderboard to tell the world who's the top plunder lord of the day or the week. No doubt you'll see people post that kind of achievement on social media for all to see. I think that's a more core incentive for Plunderstorm's main audience once the more tangible rewards are exhausted. I think there's a line to cross where continuing to dump rewards as like this ongoing incentive might not be the right play, but hey, who knows? Blizzard might surprise us if the numbers that they see aren't to their liking. Blizzard pushed an 11.1 PTR build this week. It's the first since late December's build. With it came some important dev posts covering Delves and the new raid Renown track, but I first want to highlight this new mythic Keystone Legend mount. The enterprising Shredder tank is based off the Mecha Spider kind of mount, including being able to fly. Meanwhile, Keystone Legend is a new milestone being added for achieving a Mythic Plus score of 2850. Basically, it means to time 12s. Reactions are, as always, mixed on this. No doubt there are those out there upset over another season mount out of their reach. As for me, though, I'm actually happy about this. Like, Mythic Plus folk, they've been wanting something cool for themselves for a while now, and Blizzard's just been leaning further and further into it. Meanwhile, I'm also a fan of back in the day when Gladiator gear had a distinctive look and wasn't just a recolor. I mean, yeah, I won't be able to get those appearances either, but as a commentator, I'd just rather see each of the game modes be celebrated with cool stuff. It just feels great for the game, even though I might not be a part of all of those things. Let's talk about the new Renown track exclusive to raids. We've known about it for a little while now, the difference though being Blizzard made a post about it for us to give feedback on. The idea of a progression track for raids is something I totally love. Like, long and short of it, it's a fun series of rewards, on top of the week-to-week business of raiding. It's progressed and tracked account-wide, it's easy to cap out if you're participating week-to-week, like, it only takes half the raid to get the necessary XP, and it doesn't even matter what difficulty it is. And with it come all these different perks. We get soft nerfs for the raid, we get raid teleports, we get repair vendors, and probably most importantly, Dinar or bullion-like tokens to trade for your favorite items on the loot table. Think about it like this, like once we hit those milestones, any of our fresh level 80 alts can just waltz right over and grab up to 2 pieces of gear to start with, or we can slime it with our alts years later to just buy up Transmog appearances. Oh, okay, maybe I'm getting ahead of myself. We're not too sure how long that vendor trade is going to work, but for the present, this is going to be really sweet. But there are a few points of feedback I want to put a spotlight on, along with the suggestions. First off, the Renown track is just way too long. Right now there are 20 levels to it, meaning 20 weeks worth of progression. For context, as of this recording, we're on the 18th week of Season 1, and here we are talking about what to look forward to in Season 2. 20 weeks is just too big of a spread for raid perks, whether it's the folks who clear the raid in a few short weeks or might take most of the season to do it. So I suggest shortening the track from 20 to 15 levels. Now, if this were to exist in Season 1, we would have completed the Renown track by the week of Christmas 2024, which is like a few weeks after the 11.0.7 patch. My opinion, that lands a little bit better. At worst, maybe the 20 levels, maybe they can keep, but those last levels would be nothing but the passive raid buffs because, you know, those raid buffs, they're pretty significant. Like, it's the same as giving a whole raid free item level every few weeks, and making those buffs too big and too short of a time span, it would feel awkward and it would mess with that sense of progression, I think. Second, the 2 tokens that let us buy gear from the raid, they come way too late. The first token is given at week 17, the second at week 19. So again, if this existed in Season 1, that's basically now when we would be getting these tokens, finally. Speaking for me, I wouldn't have too much to appreciate from that outside of some really, really late bad luck protection, or maybe wanting some off-spec transmog, and I'd immediately inject that with upgrades. It would feel a lot better if, say, the first token was made available early, like maybe the 3rd week of the season, so we can actually enjoy this gear and experience it build up over time. Meanwhile, at a minimum, everyone will have at least experienced the raid even on Raid Finder. As for that second token, sure, maybe that can be left way later on the track for, again, bad luck protection purposes. And sure, that means we would be slot locked for the season because we'd have at least one of our favorite things pretty early. And, dual spec and hybrid class players, like, they'll have something to say, but I'm trying to shoot for a reasonable compromise rather than demand that, yes, we deserve to get these tokens week 1 of the raid, right? So anyway, I like what they are trying to do. I already hope they make this a thing for all raids going forward. Just, there could be a bit less stretching out, and the timing of some of these rewards could be better appreciated by all players with a few adjustments. So, I encourage you to give your own feedback of what you'd like. And let's talk about Delves, which were only sort of testable last week. And this week, it's more testable, so I can give some useful information for you and some initial feedback. With a scaling item level of 639, which is somewhere on the veteran track of Season 2 gear, running tier 8 Delves with a tank brand and me playing as a tank too, it was pretty trivial. It was way too easy. I was taking almost no damage, even when purposefully standing in bad stuff. So I don't think I'd have any useful feedback to give on difficulty, other than to say the character scaling is outpacing the mob scaling, if you know what I mean. Instead, let's take a look at how crests were being given out at higher level tiers, and here are my findings. A tier 8 Delve dropped 3 runed crests, up from 2 in Season 1. A tier 9 will drop 5 runed, and a tier 10 happened to drop 8. Now, oddly enough, an 11 dropped 6 crests, and I'm sure that's likely a bug, and I expect something more like 10 runed to drop. But I did receive 6 gilded from a separate gilded chest. Delver's bounties are capped at 1 earnable per week. The testing was limited, but when I used a bounty on a tier 11 delve, I happened to get 10 gilded, meaning a delve person can earn at most 28 gilded per week between the bounty and the 3 gilded chests. Some of this information is shown to you before you go in. It also shows you whether you've capped on the number of chests you've opened for the week, and as promised, this is going to be a really big focus for me as we slide into Season 2. What do we do about Gilded in Delves? The developer post is pretty clear on their stance, in that they say, we still want the reputable source of Gilded crests to come from Mythic Plus and raids, but we also wanted Delves to start to reward reliable Gilded crests at a high level for players who want to push. When we take a step back, pretty much everyone's winning with the upcoming changes and additions as they are now. Runed is going to drop at higher rates. Gilded will be more accessible to help raid and dungeon folk get past that plateau they felt during Season 1. Gilded will be a viable goal for Delve players now to unlock mythic appearances, to complete their hero track gear, and to craft. And crafters will find that much more work to fulfill mythic-sized orders. But when we change gears and think about how this is going to work in practice, it's not hard to see Delve players being unfairly singled out. With the proposed rules, players whose activities peak at Delves, they have to clear 3 tier 11 Delves per week for Gilded, otherwise it's more or less lost. Like, imagine being a month or 2 into the season, and you're making a new alt, they're surrounded by all these other season catch-ups and discounts, but sorry buddy, you're still stuck with your 3 Gilded chests per week from Delves. The folks who do raids and dungeons, they don't have that problem. Catch-ups are much more accessible to them, and their activities, they actually meet that season cap, whereas Delves, they only offer at most 18 plus 10. Now, I want to be clear, I'm not pushing for Gilded to have the exact same crest amounts from Delves as it is with raids and dungeons. I think it's fair enough if a Delver's bounty doesn't happen to drop that week, or if you miss weeks and thus you miss out on those Delver's bounty maps. But the current state of the Gilded chest, it's not a reward consistent with other methods of obtaining crests, and it's not what I'd call reliable, using Blizzard's words. It's not Cataclysm anymore, where I had to cap my Valor for the week or fall behind on buying badge gear. Our alts, they shouldn't feel screwed for not getting in on those delves earlier. And we shouldn't feel like we're falling behind because we weren't good enough to climb to 11s sooner. And imagine later when the season caps are lifted, like, are delves still gonna feel choked like this? All I'm suggesting is that each week, this number here goes up by a factor of 3. And then later, when the crest cap is lifted, the cap for the chest also goes away. Because, hey, just let people farm the way they want to. Although they'd be restricted to farming bountiful delves each day, maybe that'd be okay. Now, personally, I have no problem with that as long as the catch-up still exists. And if this does result in characters whose gear doesn't match their skill or experience in other endgame content, Well, that's their find out moment, you know what I mean? I want to move back to these lanes I talked about earlier with like the PvP, the solo and group content, and highlight just what it is Blizzard's trying to do, at least from my observations. We're getting a raid-specific Renown track. We're getting another exclusive Mythic Plus mount. Delves are getting more viability as an endgame activity. And while there's no big changes coming to this patch, I don't think, solo queue for a rated PvP has more or less been embraced. We're seeing demonstrations of what feedback Blizzard's been responding to. Now I get it when some folks suggest all rewards should be earned equally no matter what it is that we do, and exclusivity shouldn't exist. Blizzard seems to be interpreting that statement by peeling a few of those layers away. It appears they want everyone to enjoy the same sort of fulfillment and joy of doing the activities they like doing, but also give these activities an identity through not just its gameplay, but unique rewards, like a Mythic Raid mount, or a Keystone Legend mount, or a customizable Delve mount. One of the traps lots of critics fall into is to talk up how they feel about something like Delves and give feedback that often references raids and dungeons to bolster their points. Like, hey dude, Delves give fewer gilded crests than raids or dungeons, thus Delves feel bad, make it better. I mean, I myself, I was just talking up the same thing, and I'm barely walking the line, because I'm mostly looking for better consistency using Blizzard's values of season catch-ups. The point I'm trying to make is that Blizzard is pushing further to make these different activities stand up on their own, which I know is hard to really look at because we can slide between these at will. And a lot of people, they do just that because, hey, they're gamers. And when we have the opportunity to optimize, we're going to take that opportunity. But I'm still predicting throughout this and future expansions, we're going to continue to see these gameplay styles try to be a more standalone feature with, this optional overlap. Blizzard's not going to play a zero-sum game where they sacrifice one feature for the sake of others, even though we will as gamers, because, hey, there's only so many rewards and so little time. And with player housing coming later this year, it's going to be like an umbrella casting a shadow, and we're going to meet a brand new challenge of how we want to spend our time for the things we want. That's the show, and I want to thank the many folks who joined me on the long streams this week. It was great meeting all of you who I haven't, those of you who haven't seen me live, and I hope to see more of you. A few of you have also donated to my Build a New Rig /studio fund. There's lots of changes happening in the next few months, including my location here, and I want to deliver like a proper vibe befitting the channel. Of course, to our beloved patrons, you guys have always been great, including our newest patron, Lil A. Thanks so much. And thanks to you, viewer, you made it to the end, you have fed the algorithm, and this was a long one, I think, so I double appreciate it. I hope to see more of your digital faces, so please like the video, subscribe for more WoW coverage, catch me live, and I'll catch you later. Stay safe, stay healthy, and stay breezy.